Biden, Dr. Biden, President Carter, Jack, Chip, Jeff, Amy, very distinguished guests, and friends. Rosalynn Carter was my boss and became my very good friend. She hired me to direct her projects office at the White House and has kept me busy as her volunteer ever since. We shared so many special times together, shopping for beads in a market in Ghana, popping in unannounced to a peer support program in Americus, Georgia, birdwatching at the Carter Center. What a remarkable woman she was. Wife, mother, business manager, political strategist, diplomat, advocate, author. Yet what I remember most about her was her tireless dedication to taking care of others. She was often fond of recalling the time that Margaret Mead came to visit her in the White House. Dr. Mead said to her then, "Our success as a society and our value as individuals must be measured by the compassion we show for the most vulnerable among us." In many ways, Dr. Mead had captured the very essence of Rosalynn Carter. The issues that claimed her time and attention, mental health, support for caregivers, childhood immunization, problems of the elderly, neglected tropical diseases, even building latrines to prevent the spread of trachoma, a blinding eye disease. These were not glamorous or sexy causes, yet she brought critical leadership to problems that impact the lives of millions. Rosalynn's compassion and empathy for those who are suffering was boundless. Her passion for action even more so. I shall never forget the day as First Lady, she decided to personally visit the refugee camps in Thailand, where thousands of Cambodians lay desperately ill and dying. "I have to do something," she said. Rosalynn was determined to help. The doctors in the camps called her the Yankee Angel because she brought hope where there had been none. As a result of her efforts, a broad coalition came together and raised tens of millions of dollars for refugee relief. Her tenure as First Lady of the United States was just one chapter in a life that was really devoted to caring and doing good for others. With President Carter, she founded the Carter Center as one of the world's foremost humanitarian organizations. She invited me one year to join her on a trip promoting guinea worm eradication in West Africa. In a small village in northern Ghana, she insisted I come meet a little boy being treated in a containment center. "You have to see the worm," she said. "You have to see how much suffering it causes." The alleviation of suffering has been an integral part of Rosalynn's life for as long as I've known her. While campaigning for her husband early one morning at a factory gate, a woman covered in cotton dust approached her. "What is your husband going to do as governor of Georgia to help my daughter who is suffering from mental illness?" Thus began her more than 50-year career as a mental health advocate, lobbying first her husband, then the United States Congress, and finally later the WHO to increase support for mental health. When students at her alma mater, Georgia Southwestern, documented the isolation, the stress, and burnout that afflicted so many caregivers in their community, she lent her support to the creation of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregivers. Today, it is a national advocate for programs to build resilience and strength in families navigating the daunting challenges of caring for loved ones, a challenge that her own family has confronted with grace these last few years. Even the plight of the monarch butterfly did not escape Rosalynn's attention. Threatened by loss of habitat and in alarming decline, the monarch needed an advocate, and who better than Rosalynn? She first started with her garden in Plains, then she created a butterfly trail across Georgia, and finally, she wrote Michelle Obama, that the butterflies needed a garden on the White House grounds. A short time later, there was a garden on the South Lawn. What a remarkable life she led, born at a time and in a place where segregation was the norm. As a young wife, she joined the fight against racial discrimination in her church and her community. Raised during an era when opportunities for women were limited at best, she became an ardent advocate for the Equal Rights Amendment. She ensured that women were well represented in the senior ranks of government, and she even successfully lobbied her husband for equal pay for her East Wing staff, something for which I shall always be grateful. Married at 18 and the mother of 3 little boys by the age of 25, she became an invaluable business partner in the peanut warehouse operation. When Jimmy Carter decided to run for the state Senate without consulting her, the last time he ever did that, she still pitched in as a key campaigner and political strategist, a role in which she excelled in the years that followed. She served our country as one of its most activist and accomplished first ladies. Her legacy is defined not only by her work in mental health, but also by the multiple roles she played as Jimmy Carter's closest advisor. Personal emissary to the leaders of 7 Latin American countries, consultant on his most important speeches, lobbyist for key legislative initiatives, and spokesperson on controversial policy matters. Once, as she departed for Iowa, just 2 days after the grain embargo had been announced, she quipped, "I happen to always be the first one out after a major decision or happening, but it's interesting." Whether it was the Mideast peace negotiations at Camp David or planning strategy for the Democratic Convention in 1980, Rosalynn was present and a full participant. She loved her time in Washington and was very sad to leave, but she returned to Georgia ready to pursue her passion to, as she once said, use my influence to give voice to those who may be powerless and persuade the powerful to listen. As I had the privilege of knowing Rosalynn over the years, I was constantly reminded that for her, life was truly about helping others and finding joy in the simple act of service. She never sought fame, fortune, or accolades for the work that she did, although her accomplishments have been widely recognized and honored. In so many different ways, she promoted a more caring society. A number of years ago, at the end of an interview with Jon Stewart, then of The Daily Show, where she had lobbied him to pay more attention to fighting the stigma of mental illness, and even in jest offered to award him a Rosalynn Carter Fellowship to improve his reporting skills. He looked at her and said, "Mrs. Carter, you are truly one of the good people in this world." Today, we do indeed mourn a remarkable person, one of the truly good people in this world. May those of us who knew and loved her as a friend and colleague honor her life by building on her legacy of caring deeply for the most vulnerable among us.